Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martorano and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Behavioral Corner. It's me, Steve Martorano, and as what you can see, I don't know if you can see, my very orderly office. Everything is in order here because I'm kind of a neat Nick. Not crazy so, but I'm proud of that. I don't know if I should be, but I am. Because we're going to talk about clutter. We're going to talk about the stuff we accumulate during our lives. It has a tremendous bearing on our behavioral health. It really does. And you know that if you've been watching the program, the podcast at all over the last year or so, you can see who our guest is again. It is the conqueror of clutter herself, the queen of clean. Beth Lennon is our guest on the program. Hi, Beth. Good to see you again.
Hi, Steve. Nice to see you too. Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it's been over almost a year and a half since you were here. You were a revelation to us. We heard about your interview with us for weeks afterwards because everybody, at one level or another, has this problem with, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And what you do is parachute in and show them techniques and ways of dealing with decluttering, which sounds like a physical task. Oh, let's move this over to here and maybe get rid of that out of the house. And it certainly is that, but it is also a huge psychological battle. Mm-hmm. And so when you're as good at this as Beth is, you have to have several hats, and I'm going to name a couple and you fill in for me. Sure. Beth has to have the skill of a kind of an interior designer. She has to know what might look good in that room instead of what you have there. She has to be organized because organization is important. And the one I like the best is that she does have to be an armchair psychologist. Where does it begin, Beth? Does it begin on the psychological side? What's the biggest barrier to people saying, I'm going to straighten this mess out? Is it the physical barrier, I don't want to do this, or is it the psychological barrier?
Well, it's really interesting because I do a lot of one-on-one coaching and live things on video. And oftentimes people think, I just need to move this stuff with my hands. I need to take this item from one place to another. And what I've really learned, which has been fascinating and so enjoying, it's not about what's in your hands. It's what happens before it even is in your hands. So while you can totally get some, decluttering done just by dealing with surface clutter or stored clutter, things like that, the real kind of magic happens when you realize that what you think about your clutter makes you feel a certain way. And when you feel a certain way, you do a certain thing. So you might feel a certain way that keeps you stuck with your clutter, but then it's cluing into what can I think a more helpful thought that's going to get me going to, release this item or make a decision about it or keep it or things like that. So it really is up here. Yeah.
That's what struck me most when you and I first talked. Mm-hmm. I really am ashamed that I never understood that because it should be self-evident that what was keeping, and I'll use her just as an example. She's not around. She won't get mad. I never understood why my wife managed to hold on to things that's just for the sake of holding on to them.
Yeah.
I thought it was just, she doesn't want to go down into the basement and move all this stuff, and that's kind of lazy. And it wasn't that. No. It was what this stuff meant.
Yeah.
And it contrasted to me, who, as a rule, generally speaking, I'm not attached to things, physical, things.
Right.
So I never got that until I spoke to you. It's a very significant thing. Most people don't aware that that's the problem, do they? They just, it's too much trouble, right?
Yeah. Well, as you know, the Behavioral Corner, it can be scary to turn everybody wants to think that the problem is out there. Nobody wants to realize or admit that it might be in here, because it's scary to turn that lens on yourself. But when you do, not only do you discover that what you think about certain things affects what you do and how you feel, but the neat thing is to realize that because of that, you have the opportunity to make a choice to change how you think about certain things in order to get the result you want.
We have Beth with us because it's spring, and for reasons that I'm trying to understand, we associate spring with cleaning up. Obviously, spring cleaning. You have any idea why it's spring and not autumn?
Well, I think it's kind of all the time, but here's what I imagine, and I'm sure you can too. It's not as warm as I want it to be right now where I live. However, when you've been trapped in your house all winter with the windows shut, grimy and things like that, when there's fresh air outside and it's warm and you can throw open those windows, I mean, spring cleaning is just that notion. I mean, I'm sure it's rebirth. Things are growing, things are changing. There's all sorts of stuff behind that. And also probably just wanting to, kind of blow out the dust and shake out the rugs and get it to be where your living space is enjoyable for you to live, because when your space looks and feels better, you feel better as well.
I know these things are tied together, but I want to try to break it down for people so that they can understand your process.
Sure.
And how it might work.
Mm-hmm.
When someone comes to you and says, I need your advice because my stuff is overwhelming me. It's a simple way, but my stuff is overwhelming me.
Yep.
Are they trying to create more space in the house, more order in the house, or more time so that they can do other things? What are they, when they say, I want to clean it up, what are they trying to accomplish?
Okay. So I would say technically it's all of the above, because a couple of things happen. One is when you don't have the space in your house, it makes it much more difficult to find things, to get things to do in an orderly fashion. You know, you want to be able to get up out of bed and hit the ground running in the day. So you want to minimize the amount of time that you're spending looking for things, you know, so that you have maximum amount of time to do things you want to do, you know. So it's a couple of different levels. It's decluttering your home, makes it look more orderly. You can find things more easily. You have space for perhaps, you know, hobbies, painting, you know, what things you want to do. But also it's a notion of decluttering your schedule, you know, not filling your schedule with random things that don't matter. When you declutter the things that don't matter in your home, you have space in your home. When you declutter your schedule from the things that really don't matter, you create space in your schedule for the things that do.
Time. Yeah, you have time.
Yeah.
And I know for me, the other benefit of getting things in order is the removal of this nagging thought that I haven't done it yet. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing easier to procrastinate about than cleaning up the basement, you know, or your garage or something.
Right.
And for me, the painful thing is not doing it, but thinking about not doing it. Oh, I got to clean up the garage. I got to clean up the garage.
Yeah.
I mean, that really can take the wind right out of your sails, right?
Well, the interesting thing is to me is, so I call my coaching Destination Decluttered. And if you see behind me, I've got like this little thing that I'm pointing to all the time with my coaching is you've got a map pin right here and you've got a little car and a road trip. But what I want to offer is your destination. So saying to yourself before you even start, what do I want this space to look and feel like? Why am I doing this to begin with? If you look at it like a chore, then it's going to feel like a chore. But if you're saying that every time I show up in the basement, I'm going to put one less thing there and it's going to feel so good that I'm starting it. It's going to feel so good when I'm done. And when I'm done, I'm going to have the space to do whatever I want to do with that. Or even just that I have dealt with things that I've avoided dealing with. And now's the time I'm going to do it. And there's nothing quite like that feeling of accomplishment when something's been nagging at you or hanging over your head and you're like, I did it. It's done. You know, so showing up and doing the things you said you were going to do on many levels of your life is an awesome feeling. And decluttering is no exception.
Well, this is why we love having Beth Lennon with us. That's a great, great tip right there. When it's a chore that nags at you because it never gets done.
Yeah.
And it's thought of merely in the context of clearing out a space. with no destination or a reward at the other end, you suddenly don't feel motivated to do it. I love that little thing on top of your.
Well, it's true, because I mean, here's what I love to think is when you know that you are going someplace fun, when your destination is the beach or the shore or vacation, even before you get there, you have that feeling of, this is good. I'm heading somewhere good. I'm going to do the thing. So when you just get stuck in traffic, you just roll with it. You're like, every step I'm getting closer. When you're heading to maybe the job that you don't like, or the root canal, or the DMV, you're going to be like, oh, I don't want to go there. This isn't going to be fun. And then the whole thing, the journey, it's not just about getting there. It's about enjoying the process and realizing that you're doing something you're showing up for yourself to get you to a destination, a space in your home that you want it to look and feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see primarily women, or do you see men and women?
I will see anybody that is ready and eager to work with me as far as changing their clutter. I will say that historically, most of my clients have been women, but I will coach anybody. I think a lot of women, I will say this, a lot of what I've found is that society, it has been almost the burden of decluttering, and the household has been unnecessarily, targeted the woman. So I love to remind people, both when I do my videos and my lives and my coaching, that everybody in a shared living environment should be participating in the decluttering and the maintenance of the home to the extent that they're able, because decluttering is a life skill. Decluttering is making a decision about an item and saying, do I want this in my life or not? And if I do want it, where do I want to put it?
And like so many other psychological or even substance abuse issues, they affect the family.
Completely.
So clutter as a problem in a household is a family problem. Even if each member of the family doesn't contribute the same amount of the clutter, they're affected by it. So let me ask you in that regard.
Sure.
You've got to be almost, or have you had the occasion when a client shows up of having to be sort of a couples counselor here? Because, very often one's a clutterer, the other one's not. And there's a clash. Have you had to talk people through that process?
I have actually. I've actually been on multiple calls with both the husband and the wife, or the partners. And what I want to offer is, and I say this to even the people that I coach independent, one-on-one, that has a family combination, is that everybody on the planet has a stuff story. Everybody on the planet has a way that they think about and feel about their own stuff and other people's. And instead of coming at it adversarially, like, across the table and back and forth, I'm always using the car metaphor. So having a conversation about the stuff and clutter in your home, but almost pretending like when you're in a car and you're in the front seat and you're both staring forward. Civil conversation.
The picture just froze a bit. We're okay.
Okay, I'll stop moving my hands. I always do that.
No, try again. Give me that speech again.
Sure. So I have coached. I coach one-on-one people, and I have also coached it when one of the partners has, sat in on a conversation. And everybody on the planet has a story in their head about stuff and clutter and what their stuff means to them. I mean, who is it? George Carlin. My stuff is good stuff. Your stuff is junk. We
had it on the site for
yes, I remember interview. That
we put him down. It's perfect. Yeah,
of course. And what I suggest is that everybody has their own reasons for keeping or not keeping things, and some people are sentimental, some people are not, and coming at the clutter conversation with your partner or your family with that shared notion of dealing with it and talking about it and changing so the house gets decluttered and stays that way is a goal that's going to benefit everybody, is a destination that's going to improve how the home runs and looks and feels for everybody.
Let's talk about the kids in this equation.
Sure. Yeah.
In your experience, and I know this will be a guess on your part, but I'm sure you have a good guess, is cluttering a learned habit, or do you inherit a clutter gene? What do you think?
Oh, if it were genetic, then I mean, no, it's totally a learned behavior, in my opinion, because we are taught as children to hang on to items or release them. We are taught as children to imbue inanimate objects with meaning, and it's the human condition, But what I love to offer is that we know that we can imbue something, that doesn't have any meaning with great meaning, but we can also remove that because the meaning doesn't exist in the item. It exists in your heart and yourself.
You're great at this. You are the best. you are absolutely the best.
Thank you.
When you think about, you move this problem from the sort of garden variety, oh, you're just messy.
Yeah.
Clean this mess up,
right,
to a deeper and more effective way of trying to solve it. So let me further with the kids.
Sure, yeah.
You can begin very early, even if you are a clutterer, with making sure they don't develop bad habits just because you have.
Completely. And that's one of the things I love about when I do my one-on-one coaching with people that have children, is also just looking at our own selves in the context of, having, parents who maybe came from a generation that struggled with the Great Depression and coming from a place of lack. And then there's an overabundance of mass-produced items from the 50s, 60s, and everything. So knowing where we are and breaking that chain of saying that holding on to items that do no longer serve you is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's a life skill that having them participate in every age at however when is just going to create a better human being when they go off and are adults on their own. To just know to make decisions that align with what you want in your life and being okay with moving away what doesn't work for you.
Yeah, you don't have to look very deeply into the past to see that people's behavior is largely shaped by their experience when they were younger. Certainly that depression notion of scarcity made people, as they grow older, that generation, the greatest generation, careful about what they threw away. They were frugal. Right. They didn't waste stuff.
Right.
We live in a different age and a different culture. Not every culture is characterized by abundance and therefore clutter. I'm thinking of Japanese culture seems spare. But do you suppose the Japanese have a clutter problem as well?
Well, what I want to offer is that I can only speak from the time of where we are, and I'm American, so I can speak to the United States. But what I find interesting is that even that you mentioned that it's an abundance issue. Like there's an overabundance, and much like eating, when you don't have enough, any food is you need food. At a certain point, you're satiated, but anything excess is going to cause equally as amount of problems as much as having none. So it's also, we live in a capitalist society that encourages you to express what money you make and how you love people and all sorts of things by buying items and giving gifts.
By your possessions, yes. And we live in the world's greatest consumer culture ever in the history of the planet.
Yes.
And so it shouldn't surprise us that we bury ourselves under these things.
Yeah.
Well past the time we're still playing with them. Here's a thought.
Okay.
He said. As we get deeper into the technological age, I can see in my own experience things that I used to be surrounded by that are no longer in my room.
Yeah.
I don't have two gigantic speakers, turntable, a tuner, and hundreds of albums.
Yeah.
They're gone. They're now kept here.
Right.
In this.
Yeah.
Can this sort of be the beginning of a salvation for us? I mean, it's a shame that kids don't have maybe a library of hard books, but they can read every book ever written.
Well,
and then the library's gone.
This is the interesting thing I want to hip you to is the fact that I think it was this year or last, for the first time in decades, the sale of vinyl albums surpassed anything. So I think they're, depending upon the generations, I still luckily have some of my records, but, there's always a generational thing.
Yeah.
So kids, some people nowadays embrace they want to react about the the impersonality or the ephemeral quality of music on a thing, and they want to look at the record, and they want to put they want it to be an experience versus just being able to call up anything. Like sometimes that's not fun. They want to make it have more meaning.
Yeah, it's nostalgia. It'll go away. There will be a generation somewhere down the road who will go, you actually had the records in the room with you? What did they look like? I remember there was a time when I wasn't a great collector of records. I used to get them from my job, so they were abundant. But, when you tried to move and all you had was a Volkswagen, and those records were a drag. I knew guys that lived among thousands of albums.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to have them, but it was a burden. I think technology might help the clutter field, but not without your help. That's for sure.
Well, yeah.
So let's take a look at like your garden variety person, and I'm sure everybody's different.
Yeah.
But you see people in what stage of anxiety over their clutter? Are they mildly upset? Are they there because their husband or wives are bothering them, or have they become overwhelmed by it?
So I will say two things. One is that they've gotten to a point where the clutter in their lives or their homes or their heads or their schedule has gotten to a point where it's really negatively impacting them. So they're looking for help. They're not saying, oh, this is fine. They're not working. Something's not working. It becomes like, oh, this was okay until it wasn't. So they are at a certain point with that. But the overwhelm word, I have to say, is the word I hear so often when I do TikTok lives, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and overwhelm is probably the number one word that I hear. And I love it because I'm able to remind folks that overwhelm is something that seems too big, so you don't know what to do. But you can solve overwhelm by simply looking at it, whatever it is, with a more focused lens. So when you look at your whole house, what I call you chunk it down. So you say, okay, my whole house is cluttered. Okay, let's start with one room. A chunk of your house is one room. You can make progress. The thing is overwhelm stops you from doing anything, and coaching allows you to think of things differently so you can start to do the things, take the actions that are going to get you that result you want.
Beth Lennon is our guest. So you can see what she does for a living. She helps people gain peace of mind and serenity.
Yeah.
By the often not simple task of cleaning up their rooms. Get your stuff out of here. Beth, one more time with this. What does it look like? So you do most of your coaching now virtually, which is great because you get a picture inside somebody's house. It'd be different if you would have to be going to their house. So you get to see what's going on. Take me through. So you say you break it down into increments. You begin with the proverbial junk drawer, or is that not a problem? Where do you typically begin, and what do you tell people as you can see the mess they're in?
Right. So I have a process. And as I said, I love to kind of break things down really simply so it's easy to understand and also actionable so you see results right away. Because what you want is showing up on a daily basis and doing a little bit every day is going to be the key to knocking down the clutter that has amassed over decades, but also change your habits so you don't just pile up again once you've knocked it down. So what I love to say is there's 3 layers of clutter, and on the kind of metaphorical road trip as I'm pointing behind me from where you are into being decluttered, there's 3 levels. There's surface clutter, there's stored clutter, which would be like your junk drawer, and then there's sentimental clutter. So surface is just all the stuff kind of that accumulates in the daily livings. That's stuff it's out on the surface, but it doesn't belong there. If you put it away, you'd be done. So that's the kind of, that's a habit of putting things where they don't belong. Stored clutter is the stuff that's behind doors and drawers. So, cabinets, closets that your house may look neat, but don't open that garage, that closet door, because it's going to be like McGee's closet and everything falls around, right? And then the sentimental stuff. Oftentimes people think, when they think of decluttering, they think, I'm going to have to get rid of all the stuff that I care about. And I just need to dispel that, because that's no farther from the truth. Decluttering allows you to eliminate the things that are not working for you, that you don't need, the multiples of stuff. So you have space for the things that do matter to you. And sentimental stuff are the things that tell you a story of people, of yourself. And you can decide then if you need to keep that thing to remind you of that story, or is there another way that you can remember what that reminded you of without having that physical object that you've imbued with a story in front of you.
Yeah. Do you begin the process on the lowest levels and work your way up to the other 3 levels?
Yeah. And actually what I like to say, it's a road trip. So you start with the easy stuff because it's almost like when you go to the gym. You don't go in and immediately head for like the 500-pound weight and try to lift it up. You need to build up your muscle. So you need to build up 2 areas of your decluttering. You need to build up showing up and doing a little bit at a time, because what has caused you to be cluttered is probably just avoiding the stuff and saying, oh, I'll do it later. So showing up a little bit, and also making decisions that align with who you are now and who you want to be. And so with the stuff on the surfaces, that's pretty simple because that has very little emotional, internal stuff.
It's more a result of convenience or habit.
Yes. Habit, completely habit.
It's like dropping the mail on the table as you walk through the house, rather than have a special little something for the mail. But I do that all the time. Yeah. And then you look around and you go, wow, this place is a mess.
Yeah. And that's all habit. So that's really easy peasy. The other thing too is then when you get into stored clutter, then that's again about habits of delayed decisions about, do I need all this stuff? How can I make it easy for me to find the items that I need immediately, and what no longer serves me, what no longer fits both metaphorically and physically. Post-COVID clothing, for example, looks a lot different than pre-COVID clothing. Yes. So you might be having things hanging in your closet that you aspire to getting back to a certain, shape or weight, but it's getting in the way now. And so it's talking about, again, that notion of who you are now and what you want your life to look and feel like.
Yeah, that stored event.
Yeah.
That's also, it would seem to me, correct me if I'm wrong, a kind of a way to deny the problem. Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah. I mean, anything you don't want seen, you hide it in the closet. Skeletons in the closet, the closet, I mean, I could open up this and luckily it's nice and organized, but that's for me. But it's that notion of outward appearances versus what's going on inside.
Right. And then that third one is the real tough one, because that's tied up in history and family and emotion. Yeah. How do you take people through that? Do you have a hard time talking people out of holding on to stuff?
Well, you see, here's the beauty. I never talk anybody in or out of anything. I allow them the space to make a decision that feels right for them. And that's the beauty of me only coaching on Zoom, is I'm not in their house saying, I should, here, give me that, throw it away.
So if you found yourself in my basement about 15 or 20 years ago, and you came upon a cardboard box that had canceled checks that were 25 years old,
right?
What was your reaction? You wouldn't have said, throw these away immediately?
Well, no. Well, here's the thing. I would say, what are these? Why did you keep them? What do you want to do with them? It's all about you. Your decisions reflect what your life looks and feels
like. Let's play devil's advocate. Let's work this out.
Okay.
Like they do in acting school. Okay. So the question you would ask is, well, why are you holding on to these?
Yeah. So, hey, so these are old. So, hey, these are a bunch of canceled checks. Yeah, what's up with this? And
I'd say, well, what happens if I need them? What happens if I got to go back and show somebody I proved I paid my gas bill in 1977?
Cool. So I'm going to ask you, when was the last time you had to do that?
I never had to do that. That's why I have so many checks.
Okay. So based on that, could you shred them? Could you let them go?
Oh, yeah, I guess I could. Sure.
Yeah. See, boom. That's how it happens. So the interesting thing is, to me, is you just also hit paper clutter is a huge thing with people. Mm-hmm. And you said checks from 77. You're right. That's probably not digitized. But nowadays, the paper that tends to overwhelm people is really actually a paper copy of something that already exists digitally elsewhere. So back in the day, we're in like a transition period in our society where prior to being digital, if you didn't have that piece of paper that proved it, you were in trouble, right? You had no other proof. Nowadays, almost everything, with very few exceptions, the paper items that you have are paper copies of stuff that if you threw away that bank statement, you could log in and print out another one. You could call somebody and say, send me another one.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Our habits have not kept up with the transitions that we have. We're still thinking we need to keep these things just in case, or I'm going to get in trouble if somebody asks, hey, back in 72, did you pay the gas bill?
Yeah, that's actually a true story. Anyway, a couple of other things, and
Of
I
course
will
it is.
let you go. I have nothing but questions.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm here for you. Ask away.
what about collectors,
Yeah.
legitimate collectors?
Yeah.
I've seen photos of people who collect beer bottles
Yeah.
that line the walls of shelves
Mhm.
they put up, and it looks ridiculous to me. And are they a different breed? Is that a part of clutter, or is the mere fact that they say, "Well, I'm a collector,"
Uh-huh.
to take the clutter issue out of it?
Yeah. So I say clutter is in the eye of the beholder.
All right.
So to you, you're not a collector. You see that's junk. If you look behind me, I have a collection of old train cases and things like that. I am a collector. So what I love is surrounding myself with items that bring me joy. Now, I think the thing is between collecting and clutter is everything there something that you've physically said, yes, I really like this. It brings me joy. It adds to the enjoyment of my house. If it does, then to me that you keep that. But when it gets to that point where instead of, as I say, like instead of lighting you up, it drags you down and you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much stuff. Then that's when you would curate your collection. Pick out only the good ones, any duplicates you have, sell them or whatever. And again, the collection comes from that notion of kind of scarcity and, certain generations thinking, oh, this is so rare. Or also, I got to harken back to when people like collect things from their childhood. A lot of Gen Xers and even boomers do this. Toys that they had in their childhood, they go spend big bucks on them. That's because their parents decluttered for them and didn't say, hey, do you want to keep this Fred Flintstone, whatever? It was just gone and they feel that lack. So they go and collect these things to make themselves feel better.
Recently, I read of a Mickey Mantle, the baseball player Mickey Mantle of the Yankees, his rookie card sold for $2 million or something. And all I could think of when I read that was, I'll bet you tens of thousands Mickey Mantle rookie cards were thrown away.
Yeah.
In the 50s and 60s.
Yep. It's that scarcity.
Yeah. And finally, a couple of things. One is on the scale, on the road to hoarding.
Yes.
Where is clutter? Does clutter can it lead to hoarding, which is another kind of deep, crazy psychological problem, right?
Right.
What's the diff? What are we talking about there?
Well, the cool thing is that it makes it pretty easy because hoarding is actually a legitimate diagnosis of the DSM-5. And that is a kind of a trauma, as a response to trauma that has people gather items around them for what in a way to basically make themselves feel better. So to me, I think the word hoarder is kind of bandied about like, oh, I'm a hoarder, but that's a really serious diagnosis. So when I do consultations prior to getting into one-on-one coaching with people, because I coach people for like 10-week packages. And I always have a consultation to ensure that what I offer is something that's going to help them. And if I ever heard of it sounding more serious than just your average everyday, this stuff is getting in my way, I'm sick of it, I really want to do something about it. Oftentimes, hoarders don't see that they have a problem, and it sometimes requires an intervention. So I always say that there are trained medical and psychological professionals that should be helping the hoarders, and that just to know that there is help out there for people whose clutter has gotten to that state because of what's going on kind of internally.
And it is, and you're correct. It is identified as a legitimate psychiatric disorder, a problem. Finally, last evening I was telling my wife we're going to talk to you again. She loved the first show. She said, "Oh, good. Ask her about the gentle art of death cleaning."
Swedish death cleaning.
Swedish death cleaning. I went, what? I thought she was talking about one of these crime scene people that come in and clean up after a massacre. She said, no, it's a show on television and a very famous book. I said, Swedish death cleaning?
Yeah.
So real quickly, what's up with that?
Well, the thing that I love is if you think about it, we talked about earlier about us, those of us in the United States with this capitalist society and our attention, our perceptions and what we do with stuff and clutter. Sweden has this kind of established kind of thing in their society of when you get to a certain age to really start think about what's my stuff and what do I want to happen to it after I'm gone or before I'm, kind of getting your affairs in order, stuff wise, before you leave this mortal coil,
and we're talking about something distinct from getting your affairs in order for your will. You're talking about the stuff around
but it's that kind of same concept of what do I want to happen with my, my stuff, my monetary stuff is your will, but also like getting your, saying, what are the things that are important? What do I want to make sure that is passed on to somebody else in the family? I want to be responsible so I'm not overwhelming my family that's left after I pass with I don't want to burden them with all my items. And so I love the fact that, as we mentioned earlier, different societies approach clutter and stuff in different ways. And I love the fact that this kind of concept of Swedish death cleaning is something that's catching on in the US, because at a certain point, it's taking responsibility for the items in your home and ideally doing it. I mean, I plan on living another 50 plus years. I'm already starting to think of, what are the things that I want to pass on to my nieces and nephews? What are the decisions I'm making right now that may not change what my house looks like, but I already have a plan in place to say, you know what, after I leave, here's the exceptions. Other than that, back the truck up and donate it all somewhere,
Swedish death cleaning.
Yeah. It's like
live and learn. You wouldn't know about that necessarily here, because if you're like me, you hope and expect to live forever. So what did someone say? I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve it by never dying.
Interesting.
So, but the Swiss go, no, we're all going to go. So let's get the house in order. It's great stuff. And Beth, you're the best. Beth Lennon.
Thank you very much.
Now you know where to find her. TikTok. She's got videos all over the place.
Yeah.
And we'll have ways for folks to connect on our site for you.
Yep. All you need to do is look for Destination Decluttered. As I said, I like to think of it like a road trip. And I'm on all the socials, and I've got a website, all that. So
we love having you, and it won't be a year and a half before we have you back. I appreciate it. Beth Lennon, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you guys as well. Don't forget, wherever podcasts are had, we're there, the Behavioral Corner. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Retreat Behavioral Health has proudly been serving the community for over 10 years. Here at Retreat, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 or visit us at www.retreatbehavioralhealth.com to begin your journey today.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.